Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having fantastic Thursdays, wherever you may be across this great country or this great land. I just got back inside from playing wiffle ball with my boys. It's 80 degrees. Summer, it feels like outside. Tough to beat wiffle ball with the kids. So if I look sweaty or my hair's not perfect, it's because I've been outside getting some exercise, playing wiffle ball. All right, bunch of different things to get to. Coronavirus update. Reports from Ed Werder that the Dallas Cowboys are prepared to potentially make Dak Prescott the highest paid player in all of the NFL. Marcus Mariota was on Outkick this morning. We talked with him, had a good conversation. How is he going to do with the Raiders? Peyton Manning has turned down Monday Night Football. All of that we'll get to here shortly. First, I want to say, with spring officially arriving across the South for many different people here from a variety of different southern states that are probably watching this right now, the number of people who are going to become convinced they have the coronavirus because their allergies act up is going to be off the charts. Every single person all over the South that has allergies is going to wake up by this weekend. Their throat's going to be scratchy and hurting. They're going to have all sorts of issues that are typically happening. Runny eyes, sore throat, all sorts of runny noses. Everything that happens that can be a symptom of the coronavirus, coughing, all of it's going to happen. And Southern people are going to lose their minds convinced that they have the coronavirus now that it is going to be warm down in our region of the country. Just get yourself ready for it. The drive-in areas are going to be packed beyond belief. It's going to be extraordinary after today. It's going to be 80 degrees in Nashville. I'm sure it's going to be 80 degrees in Atlanta and Birmingham and all over basically the SEC footprint. It's going to be super warm. Everybody's going to be convinced with runny noses, with sore throats, coughing. Everybody's going to be convinced they have the coronavirus because the allergies are going to arrive. All right, couple of different updates. Yesterday's press conference. I thought we got a bunch of interesting details in yesterday's press conference from Dr. Birx. She said 56% of all of the coronavirus cases right now are in New York City, Westchester County, Nassau, and Suffolk County. If you're familiar with Long Island, Nassau and Suffolk are in Long Island. Westchester, just a little bit north of the city where a lot of wealthy people live. The whole rest of the country, all the other rest of the country has only 44% of the cases right now. That is an important fact. She also said, Dr. Birx did yesterday, that the sharing by the media of all of these models, which were suggesting that death was going to befall us and that millions of people were going to die, were not accurate, and they just served to scare people to death. Well, then this morning, I read a fascinating study, which I'm going to hit you with here. I'm reading from a New Scientist, it is called. Do you remember the guy who said that 500,000 people were going to die in the UK and that 2 million people were going to die in the United States in that Imperial model, Imperial College London model that got so much attention and went viral? You probably have seen it all over social media. Well, this is interesting. He went and testified in front of British lawmakers, and he said now that he was, quote, reasonably confident that England was going to be able to handle the coronavirus, and that instead of 500,000 people dying, and this being a 12 or 18 month long process, according to this article, he said he now thinks there's unlikely to be 20,000, more than 20,000 deaths. So he has cut his high-end forecast here from 500,000 down to no more than 20,000. He now says it could be much lower than 20,000 in England. He also said that the peak of the coronavirus will now arrive. Instead of being like 12 or 18 months long, it's actually going to happen in 2 or 3 weeks. And he said that the reason why he has new projections is also, he said there's going to be plenty of beds. It'll be close, but he's not worried about intensive care beds either. He said the reason why the computers have changed is because the basically the the situation is not as he anticipated. He said that he thought that it was going to be a lot more deadly than it has turned out to be, and also that it was going to take longer to transmit. So he failed on both transmissibility and deadliness, which are the two most important variables in terms of forecasting anything. And so as a result, he now has dialed back his UK forecast to 20,000 or less deaths. Now, 20,000 people, to kind of put it in perspective, in the United States, 23,000 people this year have died of the flu. So right now we have lost 1,000 people from the coronavirus across the entire nation, the vast majority of those obviously in New York City. And now he is dialing back that fear porn forecast, which said 2 million plus were going to die in the United States. And people say, well, that's because we've instituted social distancing in our models now. But that didn't happen in the UK until the last couple of days, which means that all the data he has is not actually reflective of the social distancing at all. Yes, social distancing may be a positive impact, and I hope that it works. But this guy, this Ferguson fellow, who had this imperial map of death that was everywhere, it was circulating everywhere. It's what the coronavirus bros got a hold of and tried to convince us that everybody was going to die of the coronavirus. And instead, this is going to be a relatively much faster moving virus, and it's going to be a much less deadly virus as well, meaning that his forecast, his prognostication, is essentially completely wrong. Now, the challenge with this is 3.6 million people, I believe, lost their jobs last week in the United States because everybody panicked and thought, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. Millions of people are going to die. And everybody started firing their workers. They started retrenching. Everybody stopped spending money. And as a result, we had by far the worst week of employment report in the history that we have ever seen in the United States. In fact, putting this into perspective, it wasn't even close. It was wild how much different things were when you really break it down. And I'm going to read to you the exact numbers here because they are pretty earth-shattering in general. The jobless claims went to a level that they have never gone to before in the history of our country. In fact, we haven't even been remotely close. 3.28 million people in America, tens of millions around the world, all lost their jobs. And the previous all-time high for unemployment in a week in the United States went all the way back to 1982, and there were 695,000 people then. So not only did we destroy the record for unemployment, it's not even in the same stratosphere. 3.28 million people just in a week, and that's probably low, lost their jobs. And that's more than have ever remotely lost their jobs before in the past. And I believe this is why we need to start having a conversation, and fortunately we're starting to see it, about figuring out a way to balance out health concerns while also allowing our economy to continue to be successful. Because I believe we can do both. I think we can bring our economy back, let people start going back to work, allow people who are in danger to continue to quarantine themselves, the elderly and people with suppressed immune systems. But we got to get America back to work. We can't just shut down the country for months, because I believe the cost associated with shutting down the economy for people who lose their job, the cost in depression, the cost in death, the cost in being able to take care of your kids, do simple things like pay for your car, put gas in the tank of your car, be able to pay for your rent. All of those things are massively important. And a lot of the people who are like, oh no, you got to just shut down the economy, if you notice, they got jobs. They're not actually in danger. The people who sit around on Twitter all day saying people need to stay inside and they can't do anything, they have full-paying jobs. I got to give a shout out at this point to a lot of people that aren't paid very highly but are doing incredible work. I went to the grocery store today. Who would have ever thought that grocery store workers, that people who work in convenience stores, that people who work in gas stations, that people who work in drugstores would become heroic with the hours that they are putting in? What about mailmen? What about UPS driver, Amazon delivery man, FedEx? All of those people are out there in harm's way every single day delivering packages all around the world to keep American commerce rolling. And I think we need to give them a lot more credit and props than we're actually doing so far. And again, I will reiterate, if you are watching this program right now and you are fortunate enough, or you're listening to it, and you are fortunate enough to have financial security, spend your money on local businesses, restaurants that you like. Go get takeout food, because a lot of those places may not survive this shutdown. They shut down all the restaurants, all the bars, all of their employees. If you have the ability, tip. If you can buy gift certificates, do so to help float these businesses into the future. Remember, 60 million people in this country are employed by small businesses, and overwhelmingly small businesses are going to bear the brunt of this issue because they don't have the ability to get big financing in the way that big companies would. And so we need to be trying to take care of all the people in our local business community who do such a good job taking care of our community right now. So that is incredibly important. One more thing. I've talked about these coronavirus bros who are obsessed with sharing bad maps, bad scales, bad graphs, right? They just sit around all day convinced that the world is burning and that we're all going to die. They've been focused on Italy. Never before have this segment of the population been so obsessed with what's going on in Italy. We now have, they were like, when we get the same number of cases as Italy, it's over. Our death rate is going to skyrocket. We're not going to be able to handle it. We're going to fall apart. We now have more coronavirus cases than Italy. And the last time I just looked at the world meter graphic, we have one death for every 8.5 that Italy has. All right? So we have the same number of coronavirus cases in the United States now, a little bit more actually, as they do in Italy. And Italy has got a death rate that is 8.5 times what ours is. So they've been telling us now for 10 days, 2 weeks, next week, it's going to be unbelievable. You're not going to believe what you see. Well, we've actually gotten to the same level with the exact same number of coronavirus cases. In fact, we have more of them. And the death rate in Italy now is 8.5 times what our death rate is. So all the people out there who've been saying, we are Italy, everything's going to fall apart when we get to the same situation as Italy, we're there and we're past it, and they still have a death rate that is 8.5 times ours. That's because I've been telling you from the get-go, I don't know why people won't listen to me and actually look at facts. They want to buy into doom and gloom and disaster. I told you from the get-go, I said, we're going to be fine. We aren't Italy. Whatever is happening in Italy is not setting a precedent for what is going to happen to here. And this has happened just like I told you that it was. And people love to get in here, or they love to get in my mentions and be like, hey, Clay Travis, you have no idea what you're talking about. Why don't you go look at everything that I have shared over the past 2 or 3 weeks and compare it with the average Corona bro, and a lot of the Corona bros are mainstream media members, and just say, who has been more accurate? Who has actually been more accurate, sharing facts, giving you a sense of what's going on, trying to keep you calm? There isn't a remote comparison. It's me. I've been one of the most reasonable people in all the media with an audience that I am from the get-go telling you what to expect. And it's pretty wild to think about that I have somehow been the voice of reason lost amid a cacophony of idiocy. So welcome to my life. I'm comfortable looking at the data and taking opinions that other people aren't willing to share because they don't either do the research themselves or they're not looking at it. But all of the precedent has now started to come down on the side that I have been sharing with you, which is the side of facts. I know it's crazy. It's unbelievable. But that is the latest on the coronavirus. All right. Let's go into sports now. This is absolutely wild to me. The Dallas Cowboys are preparing to make Dak Prescott the highest paid quarterback, the highest paid player in the history of the NFL. I mean, this is wild to think about in the grand scheme of things. Can you believe that the Dallas Cowboys are prepared to make Dak Prescott the highest paid player in the history of the NFL? I honestly can't believe it. Now, they weren't able to win for 4 years when they were paying him $750,000 a year. And now you think that suddenly paying him $35 million a year or whatever it has to be, because right now I believe Russell Wilson is the highest paid quarterback in the NFL and he makes $35 million a year. So you're talking about $35 million plus for Dak Prescott. And you think you're going to be able to win with Ezekiel Elliott as the highest paid running back, with Amari Cooper as the highest paid wide receiver, and with Dak Prescott as the highest paid quarterback? You're going to be in salary cap prison very, very, very quickly. And so I love Dak Prescott. Loved watching him play at Mississippi State. I don't doubt at all. I do believe that he has been drastically underpaid for the last 4 years when he's only made roughly $2.8 million. But the idea that you're going to go from underpaying him for 4 years to paying him, according to Ed Werder, by the way, that's who this report is from, to paying him more than any football player has ever received in the history of the game, that's just crazy. I don't think Dak Prescott is the top 10 quarterback in this league. The fact that you're going to pay him more than any quarterback has ever made in the history of the game to play, it's absolutely insane. So credit to Dak. I don't blame people for getting as much money as they possibly can. I'm a capitalist. Good for him for getting as much money as he can. But it's crazy to me that Jerry Jones and the Cowboys are paying him this much money, that they're going to make him the highest paid football player of all time. This morning, we had Marcus Mariota on Outkick. Appreciate Marcus Mariota coming on. I believe that there is a good chance that Marcus Mariota can be 2020's version of Ryan Tannehill. I think the Raiders, Mike Mayock and John Gruden are bringing him in because they believe he's going to be better in their offense than Derek Carr. And much like the Titans brought in Ryan Tannehill as a security blanket in the event that the Titans didn't play well with Mariota, I think that John Gruden, having played for 2 years, coached for 2 years with Derek Carr, knows his limitations, believes that Mariota has a higher ceiling. I also believe that that also translates for Derek Carr being under siege, and that's why I believe ultimately there is a very good chance that the 2020 version of Ryan Tannehill, ironically, is going to be Marcus Mariota, a first-round quarterback who his team decides isn't the right answer. They ship him to a new team, and he replaces another quarterback who's in the final year of his contract. That is Derek Carr. I encourage you to go listen to that interview that was on Outkick this morning. Finally, a couple more things, actually. Tua. Did you see the video of Tua working out? It is going to be the #1 story in the entirety of the NFL draft. What happens with Tua? Where is he going to go? Can the Dolphins stay at 5? We presume that at #1 overall, the Bengals are going to take Joe Burrow. Can the Dolphins stay at number 5 or not? Or are they going to have to trade up in order to get Tua? And what then happens with the LA Chargers, who it appears want to get Justin Herbert? Right now, if everybody stayed where they are, I would say Burrow 1, Chase Young #2, the Redskins. We'll see what happens at 3 and 4, but probably not quarterbacks. Dolphins 5, right? The Dolphins make a move at 5 to go get Tua. And then at 6, you would have Justin Herbert. But is somebody knowing that going to really like Tua or really like Justin Herbert and decide to jump up into that 2, 3, or 4 realm in order to get ahead of the Dolphins and ahead of the Chargers? That's the story that is worth following going forward. Tua seems to be moving pretty well. I'm rooting for him to come back from the injury. If he can stay healthy, he's had 3 surgeries, 2 on his ankles, 1 now on the hip. My biggest concern about Tua is, can he stay healthy a lot more than can he make every throw? Because I've seen enough to know that he can make every throw. Finally, Peyton Manning. I can't believe the guy, credit to Peyton Manning, he's making so much money and his life is so good, evidently, that he is willing to turn down potentially $20 million a year, $18 million, $17 million, Tony Romo level money, reportedly, to be the Monday Night Football voice for ESPN. According to the New York Post, ESPN has now swung and missed on the idea of getting Al Michaels, and they now swung and missed on getting Peyton Manning as well. How many former NFL players do you think would turn down tens of millions of dollars a year in order to be able to call a Monday Night Football game? I think, in all honesty, I think Peyton Manning might be the only former NFL player in the entirety of the league, former players, that would turn down $150 or $200 million guaranteed to call one NFL football game a week. Props to Peyton Manning for being in such great financial shape. This is the exact opposite of that ESPN 30 for 30 broke. Most guys will do whatever it takes to make a few $100,000 when their career is over. Peyton Manning has got so much money stocked away that he can walk away from $150 or $200 million over the next decade just to call football games. That's pretty extraordinary. That's pretty incredible. More power to him for making whatever the best decision is for his life. I can't believe that anybody's willing to make that decision. I would be there in a heartbeat. You would. Every other former NFL player, I think, would be there as well. This is pretty wild, but Peyton Manning has done an incredible job of taking care of himself and his family such that he can still say no to $150 or $200 million if necessary. All right, I love all of you. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. Giving you a heads up, we are scheduled today to record with Mike Leach a podcast special discussing the Netflix documentary series Tiger King. So if you have watched Tiger King, which is the #1 show on Netflix right now, everybody is watching it like mad. If you have watched that, then Mike Leach and I, Mississippi State head football coach Mike Leach and I, are going to talk about the Tiger King as this week's special wins and losses Outkick podcast. Joe Exotic, Mike Leach, Clay Travis, that's a trio you can definitely enjoy, especially in quarantine season. Love all of you. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. Appreciate all of you guys hanging out with us. If you enjoy the show, share it. We'll share clips. I'll be live tomorrow, Friday edition of Outkick the Coverage, the radio show. Appreciate all of you listening. Hope you guys have a fantastic Thursday. Hope you get outside and get to play some wiffle ball like I did with your kids. If you don't have kids, hope you get to play with your boys. This has been Outkick the Show. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. See y'all. Love you. Thank you, Facebook. See y'all.